All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we are diving deep into the theology of a 1977 sermon by Myung. We're going to use the source text to really unpack a worldview where all of human history is seen as one single overarching divine mission. So let's get right into it.
So the sermon kicks off with this really massive idea that human history isn't just one random thing after another. No, it's a single, divinely guided mission of restoration. This one idea frames everything, and I mean everything, that has ever happened as part of a cosmic plan to fix something that went terribly wrong way back at the very beginning.
Okay, so if history is all about restoration, you gotta ask the obvious question, right? What was broken? To really get the sermon's proposed solution, we first have to understand exactly how it defines the problem.
The text points a finger at one specific event, the fall of man. This is presented as the source of, well, all of our problems. The argument is that when Adam and Eve made their choice, it created this huge chasm, a separation from God. And that single moment set all of human history on a brand new course, a course defined entirely by God's effort to restore that original, lost connection.
And this super detailed plan, it's not just some vague idea. It has a specific name in the sermon, the providence of restoration. And look, this isn't about a quick fix or one big miracle. It's described as a meticulous, almost painstaking, step-by-step process that has been slowly unfolding across the entirety of human history.
The sermon actually lays out this path pretty clearly. It's a three-stage progression for all of humanity. Think of it like climbing a ladder. You start at the very bottom, at the servant level. Then you move up to the adopted son level. And the final goal? To reach the true son level, which is the complete restoration of that original, perfect parent-child relationship with God.
Now, how does this restoration actually play out, especially when there's so much conflict in the world? The sermon uses this one core analogy to explain everything, and it's applied to everything from a single-family squabble all the way up to global warfare.
So, according to the sermon, you see the immediate result of the fall in Adam's own children, Cain and Abel. Their conflict is presented as way more than just sibling rivalry. It's actually the original blueprint for a fundamental division that, the sermon argues, has been repeating itself over and over and over again ever since.
So let's break down this dynamic, because it's absolutely crucial. You have the Abel figure, who is always on God's side. He's like the bridge to get back to where we need to be. Then you have the Cain figure, who is on Satan's side. Now here's the key to the whole principle, the whole deal. Restoration can only happen when Abel, the good side, is able to win over Cain, the evil side, and bring about unity.
And this is where it gets really wild. The sermon takes this family drama and blows it up onto the global stage of 1977. The Cold War, it's seen as a massive reenactment of the Cain and Abel story. In this view, the entire free world is in the Abel position, representing God's side, while the communist world is in the Cain position, defined by its rejection of God.
Okay, so you might be wondering, where does Jesus fit into all of this, into this huge framework of restoration? Let's take a look at how the sermon incorporates his role and his mission. And that leads us to the million-dollar question, one the sermon has to answer. If a Savior, the Messiah, already came, why isn't the world fixed? Why is this whole grand plan still, incomplete? The answer begins by framing Jesus as the second Adam. His mission, according to this sermon, was to succeed where the first Adam failed. And what does that mean? It means his goal was to establish a perfect, sinless family lineage right here on earth, creating a physical bloodline centered completely on God.
But, and this is a huge but, the sermon argues that his mission was tragically cut short. The goal was for him to find a bride, a second Eve, and have children, creating that new physical foundation for humanity. But because he was crucified before that could happen, he was only able to offer spiritual salvation. The physical part of the restoration, it was left completely undone.
So this idea of an incomplete mission leads us directly to the sermon's ultimate conclusion, its proposed final stage of this whole restoration process.
You can probably see the logic here, right? If the second Adam's physical mission was left incomplete, then a third Adam is needed to come and finish the job. This new messianic figure has one primary goal, to succeed where Jesus could not, and to establish that perfect physical family on earth.
And this new figure isn't alone. It's a couple, a bridegroom and a bride, referred to in the text as the true parents,
Their role is massive. They are meant to become the new root of humanity, a new Adam and Eve who don't fall, creating the very first God-centered family.
So how does this one family help everybody else? Well, the sermon uses this really great analogy of grafting. The idea is that the rest of fallen humanity can be, metaphorically, grafted onto this new, pure family lineage, like a branch onto a healthy tree. And by doing that, everyone can achieve not just spiritual rebirth, but physical rebirth too.
And finally, the sermon takes this entire massive theological framework and brings it crashing down into the modern day, or at least the modern day of 1977, with a very specific and very urgent warning aimed directly at America.
Remember that global Cain and Abel struggle we talked about? Well, the sermon casts America in the starring role. It's identified as the Abel nation, the one that is supposed to be the champion for God's side in this final conflict against communism.
But the text issues a really stark warning. It basically says America is failing its mission. It's becoming selfish, morally corrupt, and it's forgetting God. And this spiritual decline, the sermon warns, makes America incredibly vulnerable to being destroyed by the Cain world, just like the original Abel was killed by his brother Cain.
And the sermon doesn't just end with a neat little summary. It leaves the listener with this final, incredibly provocative challenge that just captures the sheer ambition of its whole vision. Why not conquer the world in the name and love of God? And that question just hangs there, revealing the ultimate world-changing goal of this entire theological framework.